Hello, hello. Welcome to our College Talk #Summer Planning, which is part of our College Admissions Literary Series, a series dedicated to bringing students and families better access to higher education and better information about college admissions. I'm James Hayashi, the Admissions Manager at College. We are thrilled to have so many of you joining us tonight. Where I am, at least, it's pouring rain, so not necessarily the mood to put you to think about summer, but it is a great time to start planning. Let's start with a couple little notes. This session is being recorded, so we'll send the recording out to all of you, so we encourage you to just be present. At the end of tonight's broadcast, we'll be gathering your contact info, and that's how we'll give you our live viewer giveaway and our recording, so be sure to stick around and fill out that form at the end. Please hit like if you're finding this useful so we know how we're doing, and I would encourage everyone to pop any questions into the comments box as we go. I'm excited to see what questions you have and to answer as many of them as we can by the end of our conversation this evening. These past 2 years, the college admissions landscape has been really competitive. While we continue to adjust to new admissions trends, many of them driven by the pandemic, one thing that's been more crucial than ever is the importance of planning ahead and using the summer months wisely. So by the end of this evening, you'll walk away with essential considerations when choosing a summer program, a summer planning timeline, an understanding of how to use your summer in a meaningful way, and some more general but really important college admissions updates. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Kelsey, our Director of Admission Services, who's going to share a little more about our team and program at college. Welcome, Kelsey.
Thanks, James. It's definitely a little bit of a dreary evening here for talking about summer planning. I mean, I know that I want to think about the beach, though, when it's gray and like in the 60s. So we can just dream. We can just pretend that it's going to be summer sooner than we think. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. And first of all, welcome everybody. I'm so excited to be doing our first of our college admissions literacy series of the entire year of 2023 tonight. I want to take a moment to just introduce ourselves. So for anyone out there who doesn't know the famous College yet, we are a private college admissions advisory group. We are a team of experienced admissions professionals who have the absolute honor and pleasure of working closely with students and their families anywhere on the path to higher education. That work really helps students to identify and apply to best fit colleges while also igniting their deeper self-knowledge and potential along the way, which is, for me, the absolute best part of the work. You can see a little bit of kind of some of our outcomes, which we're always really thrilled to share. Because we're so focused on the student and growth and fit, you can see that that actually is borne out in the success in our numbers. So if you take the, colleges, the small handful of colleges that you see on the screen, school like, for example, lots of students come from the LA area wanting to apply to USC. USC right now has an overall admit rate of around 11.4%, so a little bit daunting. But for the students who apply using our services, our support, and really listen to our counseling, we're seeing them get in at a rate of more like 40%. And that really has to do with the fit. Just to be clear, we can't get every single student out there in to USC at a rate of 40%. That would be crazy. But rather, it's really all about that fit. So you can also see that students who start even earlier than their junior year have an even higher success rate. We're so excited every year to notice that the students who do an early start plan with us before completing their application year plan actually get into their top 3 choice colleges at a rate of about 100%. So super exciting. And so I just want to say that if you have more than just summer planning on your mind as a parent, which I suspect you probably do, especially if you have a junior in the house, make sure to reach out to us sooner rather than later to make sure you secure your child in our 2023-24 cohort. So yay for 100%. Okay, so James, I know that we've seen a lot of changes lately. Do you want to give us some updates on what you're seeing in the testing world?
Sure. Testing is one of the topics that we get the most questions about, which makes sense because it's one of the areas that's
Absolutely.
confusing.
James, I don't know if you can hear me. You froze for a second. Can you just repeat what you were saying?
Sure. Can you hear me now, Kelsey?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So testing is one of the areas we get the most questions about because it's one of the most confusing. The UCs, for example, are permanently test blind. So that's one whole set of schools. But the other end of the spectrum, we have places like MIT, Georgetown, Georgia Tech, Purdue, and the Florida State and University of Florida systems reinstating testing requirements for the 22-23 cycle. So there's a lot of variation there. Also, one thing to note is that a lot of colleges' commitments to test optional policies are set to expire after current high school juniors apply. So schools like Columbia, Vanderbilt, WashU, and Case Western. What does that mean for everyone out there? There'll still be plenty of colleges that are test optional or test blind because even before the pandemic, there were quite a few institutions that didn't require an ACT or SAT test. So if you absolutely hate those exams, do not worry. At the same time, having a solid test score never hurts anyone in their applications, I promise. And a strong score will open up possibilities for students that might otherwise be closed. So all things being equal, I generally strongly recommend that students at least take a practice ACT or SAT and see how that goes. In the next 2 months, we're going to see more and more colleges giving their testing requirement updates. So the testing landscape and strategies are going to become clearer. We can in fact, do a whole presentation on testing, and we will next month. We have great testing debate, so stay tuned for that.
And we'll give you the link to sign up for that one also a little bit later on in our show tonight. We will also be giving some giveaways, so make sure to stay tuned. So kind of to give you a little bit of our predictions about what we think is going to happen next. As James mentioned, there are schools that haven't yet committed fully to what they're going to do this year. And then there are a lot of schools that are going to transition for next year. So what does all of this mean? Yes, it means that you may or may not need to test, but also in terms of which schools may go back to test required, which ones may not. So as we know, the UCs went permanently test blind. We've now begun to see some of the selective schools, especially the ones that the whole time in their language about their testing policies were very much like, we missed the test and we want it back. And you can really see that pretty clearly on their testing policy website language. What we're anticipating is that there will be a bit of a divide in the road with schools following the trend of the UCs, especially California schools, even private schools, and schools that may follow the trend of MIT and some of those other highly selective schools. The other type of school I would keep your eye on, viewers, who, if you're really interested in wondering how schools are going to kind of line up with the testing policies, I would say keep an eye on the large public, especially flagship universities, because their testing policies are tied to the law of the state. So for example, the University of Colorado system was one of the last to go test optional in that first pandemic year, simply because they had to wait on the Colorado government to approve it, right? So just keep an eye on that. Those are the ones that we think will probably be the first to go back test required. And the other thing I just want to mention is, we've seen this wave, and it has turned into kind of an ongoing wave of increased applications, right? In that very first year, we saw huge increases by like 40 to 60% at the highly selective level. Then last year, we were noticing that we saw this kind of secondary wave where schools that were not so uber selective, like, Harvard, but still very selective at around 10 to 15% admit rate schools, saw an uptick, especially in their early application pool, with them just growing a lot. And then this year, what we're noticing is that the colleges who are even a notch less selective than that, 20 to say 35% admit rates in this past or semi-current season in the early round, saw huge rises in the early application. So just keep in your mind, especially if you're getting closer to formulating a college list, that what a balanced list means, it does continue to shift. It's really important to keep your finger on the pulse of what is happening. So just to give you a little bit more information, we want to go through a little bit about how admissions decisions are made. And I promise we're going to get to summer planning very quickly because they're all inexorably kind of linked, right? What you do with your time in high school and how you do in the admissions landscape, very, very closely related. So you can see here on the left-hand side is kind of a pie chart look at what admissions decisions, kind of how all of those different pieces panned out in importance in a test required landscape. So you can see the biggest part is what we'd call the academic profile, which is the transcript and the test scores in a test required landscape put together. You can see that's the vast majority of the decision-making process. With essays, only 20%, activities involvement, around 8%, letters of recommendation and demonstrated interest, depending on the school, being a little bit less important. When we take the test out of that as a required element, that means that eyes are really focused on the transcript. And even for test optional schools and test submitters, the test score isn't read with the same weight because it's not a unifying kind of requirement, right? So you can see the importance of test scores, obviously, especially at test optional or test blind schools, went down significantly. We'll dig into that a little bit more next time at the Great Testing Debate. You can see that essays went up. Involvement of activities was kind of up and down because students couldn't get those, activities as well during the pandemic. Letters of recommendation, however, got more important by a significant amount, and so did demonstrated interest. And just as a note, those letters of recommendation now are being considered almost as a supplemental part of the academic profile at many schools. So just to give you a little bit of that insight into what are the different pieces here at play, and how important are they? So always the academics are going to be the biggest single part of the decision-making process. But those other things are really important in coloring that and setting you apart, especially in a more competitive pool.
Thanks, Kelsey.
Yeah.
So on the screen, you can see kind of our general outline for 9th through 12th grade summers, what you can be doing to strengthen your applications. But kind of conceptually, as you think about summer, I would like to break it down into kind of different areas, ways that you can really dive in. The first is exploration, self-expansion, self-exploration, learning about who you are, what your interests are, and building on those strengths. Going through internet research to find programs, of course, networking, reading about different things. Those are all really helpful, and it's best to start as early in your high school career as possible to give you really the time to develop into your interests.
So
Academic coursework is another area that you can advance on in summer. Getting ahead in your classes, taking college classes, and kind of narrowing into your special interests. As we just alluded to, test prep is another area that may gain importance in coming admission cycles. So be flexible with that. If you're a junior or a sophomore, you may need to take a test, or summer is a great time to develop a list of schools that are test optional where you wouldn't have to submit a score. But of course, do a double check that all the colleges on there are test optional if you're planning not to do any test at all. If you're currently a junior, getting ready for college apps is essential. Everything, remember, goes live on August 1st, so you can start working on those essays. As a general rule, it can take a student anywhere from 5 to 25 hours to finish their very first college essay. And there's about 20 other essays probably you're going to have to write that you don't realize. So remember that applications can be very complicated, especially the UC app. So the sooner you begin working on your applications, the better. For those of you who are interested in a more strategic plan for summer and other key areas and can use help developing that plan, at college, we offer families early start plans. These strategic plans help infuse your time with our expertise and our support.
Thank you so much, James. So now that we kind of know the power of summer to really dive into who you are, know what you really like, what you don't, to get ahead in classes, and to eventually present that evidence in college applications, let's look at a real student. So Stella, we've changed her name. But she is a real person. And we worked with her over the last several years. She actually started quite early with us. You can see here on the screen at the very top some of her academic profile information. As is becoming more common, especially here in Southern California, she attends a school that doesn't offer AP courses, but they do offer their own highly advanced courses. So you can see straight off the bat, she's got an weighted 4.0. She's nary an A- anywhere to be seen. Super duper strong SAT. And you can see this is just a handful of the advanced courses that she took. You can see she's highly involved. Now, when I started working with Stella, this was back in the thick of the pandemic, fall of 2020. And she was really ready. She was a really good student, but did in a lot of different things, maybe marine biology, maybe something else, right? Like she had a lot of different interests, but what we really narrowed in on together was two passions, like two very deep passions. One was the environmental advocacy, environmental sustainability, and the other one was homelessness. And so you can see through that kind of narrowing in and that the conversations, the exploration, She did some incredibly meaningful work in both areas. So she ended up connecting with, through our work together with LA Family Housing, she ended up founding and leading a product drive for women experiencing homelessness that started just after that in the spring of 2021. And then she later joined, applied to, and was accepted to USC's SHINE program, where she did some incredible machine learning research and work to reduce carbon monoxide emissions. So you can see she really dove into her passions. She really utilized her summer well, both by being involved in summer programs, by working on her applications, doing outreach to different nonprofits, working on her writing. In the end, she had a phenomenally balanced college list, especially with such a strong academic profile, where she was really just as excited by most of the highly selective schools as the ones that were a little bit easier to get into, but still had great programs for her. She was in a 12-school all-inclusive plan, worked incredibly hard. So proud to say that she was accepted and will be joining the Tufts class of 2027 this fall. So you can see that with that involvement, you really have a through line and you have a more meaningful high school experience, as well as some really exciting college outcomes.
Yeah, thanks, Kelsey. As part of our mock admissions reviews, I got to look at Stella's essays, and they were superb, unsurprising,
Yes.
given what a good student she is. Well, often we find that missed opportunities during the summer months is due to a simple lack of information. There's a lot of excellent programs and opportunities out there, and there's no way that families can keep track of all of them. But we're going to dive into 3 sample programs of 3 different types right now. The first, as you can see on the screen, are on-campus pre-college programs, and we're taking, for example, the USC Exploring Entrepreneurship program. The benefits of this type of program are vast. First, students, if it's an on-campus and not the virtual version of the program, students can really imagine themselves on a campus. They get to walk around, see the sights, stay in a dorm. There are, again, commuter and sleepaway options, but if they're on campus, they can really see what dorm life is like for a week or two. The experience can be fantastic fodder for college essays, even beyond the actual learning component. Recently, I helped a student, and he wrote one of his supplemental essays about a USC program, and he got to stay on campus, and he lived with roommates who are from Puerto Rico, I believe. So there was a little bit of a cultural gap, and they had to learn how to negotiate that. So when colleges asked, how have you dealt with difficult conversations, the student was able to pull from this experience seamlessly and write about that. Of course, one of the main reasons a student would do a program like this is getting that hands-on experience. Students will get to hear from world-class speakers often, participate in discussions, again, from students from around the country and sometimes around the world. And they can get really excited for that topic, whatever it is that they're learning about. We've also had students who were gung-ho about, say, a pre-med major, and then they did a program in biology or scientific research, and they came back and realized, oh, I actually don't love that at all.
Just as important to realize.
Yeah, and it's so fortunate because otherwise they could be spending their whole first year in college taking classes and have to learn that lesson as a college freshman, as opposed to knowing right now, oh, I don't want to do that. So it's great for deepening your interest, and it's also great for learning beforehand. You may not love something as much as you thought. The USC Exploring Entrepreneurship program, though, this one in particular, again, students will get to hear from guest entrepreneurs and other speakers. Of course, many of you know USC has fantastic business roots and connections, so they're able to pull some of the best speakers around. Students will also get to go on off-campus field trips, going to see startups and venture firms, going to downtown and seeing manufacturer retailing and different kinds of food concepts. They'll also learn how to practice pitching their ideas, and they get to learn about the ethics of entrepreneurship as well.
It's such an amazing program. We had a student do this exact program just last year, and he walked away with it with so many different skills, had connected with professionals, had written so many thank you notes, and I love that they taught him to do that in the program. So it's a great program. Thank you so much, James. So the next type is quite different. We call it an enrichment program. So it's still a summer program. This one is through the National Student Leadership Conference. And I'm going to, you can see that we threw the link for you for your reference for the USC program. I'm going to throw it into the comments box now for this NSLC program as well. Just give me 1 second here. Nope, that's not it. I'll grab it in just a sec. So this is an amazing program that is nationwide, and they host summer programs on different campuses, in fact, across the nation. So it's a really great opportunity to still get on a campus, but it isn't run by the school. This is a program that is really focused on you developing as a person. So rather than being more like being in a classroom and studying something you think you might be interested in, there are also enrichment programs that help you learn to, have a better understanding of who you are, what you have to offer, become a leader within your community, begin to, explore community service projects, creating your own, getting to learn how to speak a little bit more, how to set goals, how to utilize your interests and talents. So this is one that we absolutely love. Now, sorry, James, go ahead. I would introduce a speaker right now. We were going to have an amazing little cameo from the founder of one of our favorite organizations. It's a service learning organization. Her name is Nandani Sinha. Unfortunately, her internet seems to have been washed out of the rain. And so we will just be sharing a little bit about her organization on her partnering with this organization. They have some great giveaways, which we'll talk about in a second.
Well, Kelsey, I know that you know Music Heals Minds very well, so I'll interview you, ask the questions I was planning to ask of Nani. Could you tell us a little bit about maybe her background and what inspired her to begin Music Heals Minds?
Absolutely. So Music Heals Minds is a musical intervention therapy organization that works mainly with elderly folks who are dealing with Alzheimer's, dementia. And so they go in and there's a lot of really neat cognitive science to it, with singing and music and the ability to connect back to who you really are and connect back to memory. So Nani herself, first of all, is a phenomenal musician. She's an opera singer, and she has worked with places like LA Opera. And she also, her father actually went through a 20-year decline of dementia. And she noticed in his decline, when it became harder for him to connect with her, connect with the family, remember, where he was and what was going on and who people were, that music was something that not only calmed him, but also brought him back to reality. So that was the kind of founding principle and the thing that really made this a passion project for her.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's always so interesting to hear how people's personal experiences shape their interests and their passions. I heard that Music Heals Minds got some national news coverage recently.
Yeah. So earlier this year, they were doing some incredible work actually with people who were suffering from long COVID and who were having a really hard time recovering, who, were still unable to breathe well. And so she had her expert singer musicians going in and working with these patients and helping them to kind of regain their lungs, their ability to breathe through singing. And so she was featured on, I can't remember what news channel, but they had this amazing interview and she was featured all over the place. We got to hear her sing and everything like that. So it was pretty incredible. It's a really amazing group.
Fantastic. So for those students or parents of students out there thinking about this opportunity, anything that you think might help a student kind of get into this program, or what might students do as volunteers?
Absolutely. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to put the contact information, if anybody out there is interested, into the chat box right now. And basically, she has opportunities for students who are musicians, who are interested in doing performances and working with people who could benefit from this kind of musical intervention. She's got also, like, more general, if you really think that this is interesting, or you think your student might find it interesting, or it's just something that you would want to give back to, anything from folding programs to sending out cards. She's got lots and lots of different volunteer opportunities. And she's had we had a student that we sent over to them who had a really amazing experience working with this organization. So it's a great opportunity for people who are interested in any kind of like interventional therapy or music, or who just really want to help, and or if they're interested in kind of the older population and people who are declining from Alzheimer's dementia specifically.
Yeah, it's always so good to connect with our students after they've done their first round of service learning. They come back so excited and like, wow, I didn't even know that was something that was out there. And they really feel inspired to continue helping their communities.
Absolutely. So as a special gift, Nani is extending 5 free musical singing telegrams, which can be a really wonderful celebration for a birthday, where she'll do a personalized singing telegram for you. So for the first 5 people who comment on their streaming platform with hashtag MHMLA and hashtag college, we will be giving you one of those 5 singing telegram giveaways. And we also have a couple of giveaways. As James mentioned, we have our summer planning timeline, and we have our summer planning timeline, and of course the recording that we're going to send out later. So stay tuned. We're going to send a form to get some of your feedback, and also gather the contact information that you'd like us to send your giveaway to. So make sure to hashtag us in your comments box and MHMLA, and then fill out that form as well.
Wonderful. Well, we know that learning isn't just about knowing what to do, but knowing what not to do as well. So before we let you go, I want to pause and just share a few common mistakes that we see when people are thinking about their summers in high school. The first, as you see on your screen, is missed deadlines. You want to identify programs you're interested in early on. Many programs are, if not having their deadlines come up soon, there are a few that have even passed. So make sure you know what you want to do and when their deadlines are. Make a plan to fill out the registration forms and complete all the short answer essay questions in time. Some of them also require letters of recommendation, so you'll have to identify whom you're going to ask and make sure you ask that person in a timely way. Summer programs, some of them again are due as early as February, so get crack-a-lackin'. Second is underestimating the importance of summer. It's of course a good time to relax, unwind, have some fun, but summer can really fly by if you don't take advantage of the opportunity. So schedule things early. Thirdly, lack of exploration and lack of research. We always like to say, you don't know what you don't know. Parents and students need to explore and find things that really match their interests, because again, that summertime is so limited. The well-known programs that everyone's heard of are great, but they may not be the best right fit for you or how you learn or what you really want to explore. So make sure you spend sufficient time searching for what's out there. There's a lot of hidden gems. Similarly, not enough self-exploration. When we're speaking about students' passions, summer is a fantastic time to really discover and nail down what you're interested in. Students' interests change a lot as they go throughout high school, and using summer to explore a variety of academic and extracurricular interests by trying new things, it's just a great idea. Then lastly, kind of just checking the boxes, going through the things that you feel like you're supposed to do rather than exploring your passions in an authentic way. That's kind of the most dreary use of your summer, right? Just checking all the boxes. So really
Absolutely.
finding things that you love will make it meaningful and fun.
Such good advice, James. And I think it's really tie it to your interests, right? Like if you do something that's exciting for you, it'll be great for you. And also then it'll be evidence of something you might like in the future.
Yeah, thanks, Kelsey. Well, again, you can see on your screen, we want to thank everyone for joining us, and I want to make sure that you're getting access to all the wonderful free community resources we have. So please make sure to follow us on Facebook and consider sharing this content with anyone you think could benefit from it. We'd like you to stay tuned for our next college talk. As we mentioned earlier, it'll be the Great Testing Debate, and it'll be on Sunday, February 12th. So just in a few weeks. I'm going to put the link in the chat box again for anyone who may have missed it earlier. Joining us on February 12th will be John Lee of Compass Education Group, one of the premier test prep groups in California. So sign up through that Eventbrite link to lock in your space. Also, they'll have an amazing giveaway for our viewers.
So thank you all so much for sticking with it. We are going to get to some Q&A in just a moment. So as you prepare your questions, I'm going to go ahead and pop our evaluation form into the comments box now. Please take a minute as you gather your thoughts about questions that you have to fill out the form. It'll be, we'd love to have your honest feedback, but it'll also be the way that we're able to send you your copy of our summer planning timeline, the resources that we want to send for all of the summer programs that we know about, and then also those Music Heals Minds giveaways, those wonderful singing telegrams. All right, so let's get to some questions.
Well, Kelsey, one question that I often hear is this: should I be going for summer programs at colleges that are more prestigious if they're thinking of those on-campus options?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I mean, I think you really want to narrow into the quality of the program and how much that program matches with your interests and what you want to experience. Oftentimes, as an admissions reader, we'll see summer programs at schools like Harvard and Princeton because you can really see that it's a family that's thinking like, oh, this is going to get me in. It's going to give me a hook. The bad news is that most of those programs, the highly selective schools, are not going to help you get into those highly selective schools because they're not really selective programs. And they kind of are a little bit of a kind of, I don't know, they're like a little bit of a trap. You want to go because it's a really highly selective or like a prestigious school, but the program itself is not that selective. And so when admissions officers see that, sometimes there's a little bit of a question mark in the mind. Is this a student who's checking the box, or was this really a great fit for them? So I don't want to disparage any summer program at highly selective schools. We certainly love a lot of the programs, for example, at Summer at Brown. And we've seen some students who have gotten great experiences at those programs, but just know that typically it's not going to actually help you get into those schools.
Yeah, great. That's so counterintuitive to what I think a lot of families would assume when they say like,
Absolutely.
"Oh, Yale, Harvard, amazing."
Absolutely. I think that's so good. I mean, so James, what do you think about we've seen a lot of students come in and be really interested in the more competitive majors recently. And I think that makes a lot of sense given the climate and what's been happening. So computer science, engineering, business, what words of wisdom do you have for students thinking about their summers for those highly selective competitive majors? What would you recommend?
Actually, the first thing I would recommend would be for the students and their families to rewatch the recording of this on YouTube because there's a lot of helpful hints in here that we've given. But also, maybe again, with the going back to the tip of starting early, you can think of your summers kind of as a progression, right? The summer after freshman, after sophomore, after junior years. So there's multiple summers in there if you start early enough, and you can start with a program that might be a little bit lighter, something that's just 1 week or even a few days, and something local. That'll again give you that taste or flavor of like, oh, I do really like engineering, or oh no, I didn't love entrepreneurship as much as I thought that I would. And if you do really like it, saying like, okay, what's the next step? Is there something a little bit more competitive, a little bit harder to get into, and using that first summer program to build your resume and as a launching pad into the next thing, sophomore year, and then summer after junior year, you could do the same thing again and springboard to something even maybe longer, more in depth, more specific at a particular part of engineering or particular type of business that you're interested in.
It's really, really great advice. Really great advice. So I want to be mindful of everybody's Sunday evening time, and I want to thank everybody one more time for sticking with us tonight and learning a little bit about summer planning. And I just want to say that, as a group that's really trying to reach families, we're really glad that you're here. And I want to let anybody watching know that if you feel like you might need more information, if you maybe need a little bit of help with actually finding the best right fit summer programs for your child, if they're a 9th grader, 10th grader, even an 11th grader, or if you have a child who is looking applications in the nose, if they're a junior, we'd be really happy to connect with you. And the first step with us is we have a couple first steps, but it stays light. You don't need to commit to an entire plan before you get to know us. So I'm going to go ahead and pop the link to reach out and connect with us, whether that is through a call, an email, or just by going straight to our famous student assessment for admissions. We're going to go ahead and take care of you, and we'd love to hear from you soon.
Well, I also want to thank everyone for joining us. And thank you, Kelsey, as always, for your vast wisdom in the world of admissions and everything college related. And I'm looking forward to seeing everyone at our next college talk in February, the great testing debate, February 12th.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, everybody. Good night.